Some of you know me. I'm, as you know, from Madison, Wisconsin, and I got the CCL bug late in 2010 was when I heard of it. I was like, wow, there's a group working on carbon fee and dividend? I couldn't hardly find anybody who had heard of it at that time. So I started a chapter in Madison. We're right in the middle of the anti-Walker uprising that was going on in our state, and I am a former teacher, or I was a teacher then, so that was a really interesting period. But we got going, and then I thought, well, okay, a chapter in Madison in our liberal town, that's really great, but what we need is the rest of the state, you know, because they talk about Madison as 20 square miles surrounded by reality or something like that, you know. So then I helped to get chapters going all through Wisconsin. So Minnesota got started earlier. You guys are amazing having 13 chapters and the coverage you have. I'm almost there in Wisconsin. I had so much fun with that and got so many people to DC that I cut back on my teaching and then came on staff with CCL in June at the end of the school year last year. Yeah, so I really, really love doing that. My title is National Program Director. What that means is since you guys are the program, you know, like Mark says, everything really smart and creative and out of the box is coming from the field. My job is to support that happening. And as we grow, as we double every year, like Madison was the 25th chapter, and we're up at just about 150. Like the personal support from Mark Reynolds back at chapter 25 is not what it can be today. And even with me on staff, it's still not what it was back then. And even with 12 regional coordinators, it's approaching that. But so that's my challenge, is to keep you guys well supported, so that when you're going into a meeting, you always know that there's multiple places you can turn for that. Okay, so that's a little about me. And what I want to do here is kind of a leadership development session. And I didn't want to call it a thing for group leaders because it's really something that everybody can do and everybody needs to do. You know? And I'm so taken with Minnesota that like you have that many newer people in here and how you're growing, that because usually it's the other way. It's like 10 people go off with Mark and most conferences aren't this big either, and 50 people stay behind. So this is very cool. Okay. So the place I want to start with really is with you noticing what you are doing already. You might be like me, I suspect, where at the end of the day your mind might just be pulled to what you didn't get done that day. You know, it's like, okay, I did 15 things, but there's another 10 on my list. Or I did these 2 things, but I didn't get this done yet. You know, do you ever have that experience?
No, never.
Never. Mark didn't get, I don't know if he'll talk about it, he didn't get to yet, but he sort of talked about how in some conferences were these like diseases that we activists get. One of them he labeled NDE, not doing enough.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, right, all right. So the first thing I really want you wonderful people who have been in CCL for a while to notice is what you are doing and to appreciate that. And I want you to notice it within CCL, what you're doing, or anywhere else in your life, because we're a seamless whole, you know, not divided up into chunks. And so I just want you to pair up in a moment and take about 2 minutes to tell somebody basically to appreciate yourself, all right? And your leadership and what you've been doing for the climate and for the earth. And then after 2 minutes, I'll holler switch, which isn't going to work very good because you're not going to hear me. So I'm going to clap, and if you see me clapping, you're going to like raise your hand and wave it, okay? All right, and then people will notice. And if you're the person who's listening first, you might notice that the person talking might get pulled to start going negative on themselves. So if they do, you could just remind them that this is your, you know, do something uncharacteristically Midwestern and blow your own horn a little bit. And we won't tell your neighbors that you did it. Okay? Okay. All right. So let's. And I really do encourage us to go by twos if we can. So 2, 2, 2. Can you guys go that way? And you want to go with your girls?
No, I want to go with another adult, and they'll just come along with.
Okay, you guys go 2. I think we got everybody. Has everybody got a sense of their partner? Okay, so notice what fabulous people you are. All right, go ahead. First person start. Whoever has longer hair, go first.
It was kind of relieving to be able to let out everything that we've done that's so fabulous.
Yeah, a little uplifting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Anybody else? Okay, cool. So yeah, and each one of you and of your people you work with are unique and mix activism and climate advocacy into your life in a different way in a different place. So the way I think about the CCL model that we have is that we're trying to unleash individual initiative around a common goal and strategy. So we have a unified focus and a unified thing we want, but we have a lot of things that can happen to get us there and that need to happen. And so everybody I meet, that's what I'm trying to figure out is like, what's the piece that lights them up, that's their unique contribution. And sometimes they do things that I just, most of the time they do things I could never do. I'll give you a few examples from my chapter. So like Sarah, I met her at a church presentation. She started coming to my chapter meeting. And then one day she just mentioned that she saw herself as a representative of CCL to her church. And I hadn't even known how much she was taking CCL back to her church sustainability committee. So that was cool. Then there's another guy, Dan, who was actually in a horrible car accident some years ago and lost a lot of functioning, which he's like crawled his way back to get, and music has been one of his outlets. And climate change is his total passion. So what he started doing recently, he told me, is that he plays a lot of open mics, and he talks about climate change while he's doing the open mics, and then at the break, he goes out and he talks to people and they talk back to him. It's like they come back to what he talked about. I don't play music, he does. And then Joel Charles, some of you may know him. He's a medical student from Green Bay, he's down in Mass, and he did the workshop. He's awesome. I can't believe what he's gotten done while being a medical student. For one thing, he helped us get lacrosse together in Wisconsin. And every time he goes to a different school, town for rotations, the doctors have these grand rounds where the doctors all get together and talk about stuff to each other. So he does a presentation on the health impacts of climate change. He gets these doctors interested, and now he's starting to take them to members of Congress, not even under the CCL banner, but he just, so he's worked that into his life. So people just do things that, extend it way beyond. They're taking their climate activism into other places of their life, basically. Okay, so I have a little chart here that you guys probably recognize. You know that one, the comfort zone? Inside there is your comfort zone. And then a lot of times we talk about when you get outside your comfort zone, what's over there? The magic. Scary. Oh, you're jumped ahead of me just a little bit. Yeah, but let me just talk about the magic a little bit. Like for me, after about 6 months in CCL, I never ever thought I would lobby members of Congress. Never, ever, ever. Why would they listen to a kindergarten teacher? And so, yeah, it was scary, but it was also like after a little while of this, I was like, who am I? I'm becoming this person I didn't think I could be, and it was pretty magical. Yeah, if you go a little farther, I call that ST, the land of ST, sheer terror. You ever been in sheer terror? Yeah, okay, all right. So outside of our comfort zone is really cool because magical things can happen there and it's kind of uncomfortable. Go further and maybe you find yourself in sheer terror. And so my advice is if you're feeling like way out there, there's a couple of things you can do. One is it's permissible to decide to go back a little bit where you can think, right? If I'm so scared I can't think, then maybe I go back a little. But the better thing is to do this. Get some company. in that spot. That's why being a team is so good. Right. And like the worst thing to do is hide it and not show it at all. Now here's a cool thing. When you start getting into the magic or edging that way and flirting with that, your comfort zone does this. Have you noticed that? That's what I've noticed. Okay. So your comfort zone gets bigger, and now the magic's starting to be where the terror was, and you know, you're going out there a little bit more. It's all kind of cool. All right, so the next thing I want you to think about then for yourself is as somebody who's passionately involved in climate advocacy, training myself not to use activism because I'm told that that word doesn't work so good with conservatives. As a climate advocate, what's the place for you that's going to be in the magic? What might you like to try that you haven't tried yet that would make you go, wow, I didn't think I could do that. Huh, that'd be kind of cool. I wish I could try this. So that's what I want you to think about next, is where's your magic that you might just want to try. So you got a partner, just go ahead and stick with that partner because it's less complicated. Is there anybody who doesn't have a partner?
You have a partner?
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, other person goes first this time. So whoever went last goes first. All right, yes. Definitely out of the comfort zone most likely. Yeah, I saw some more hands. Paul.
I want to do more reading and writing and less out, talking to people because I'm really good at that. But what I want to do is like what Chuck does, is learn more about the issues and go deeper on the issues. And Chuck talks to a lot of people too. He's always showing me articles. I think I just want to round myself out as a climate activist or a climate advocate.
Excellent.
More rounded.
Yeah. And that really highlights how our comfort zones aren't the same, are they? No. Like, don't assume that your comfort zone is the same as somebody else. Like, Paul likes speaking. Me, that's like been outside of mine. Okay, anybody else? Yeah, Brian.
I guess I want to do more delegating, training and delegating. And it's uncomfortable for me sometimes to think that the job will get done right or it'll get done and trusting that it'll happen. And if we don't do that, we're not going to have enough people to do everything.
So to quote Mark Reynolds, so stinking smart. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my partner and I both kind of fell into talking about the fact that renewable energy needs investors, and investors need places to put money. And I don't know, one of the ideas that we're rolling around is that we've done little conferences, but maybe we need to do an investors conference.
Cool. All right, ideas. All right, one more.
Marie said that she wants to apply her creativity into the, catching people's attention in video on the internet and so forth. Not just passing them on, but creating those.
Great ideas.
Yeah, with the
All right.
dog, yes.
Okay, we got a couple more. All right, Jean.
Jean wants to work with children so that they get an early awareness of the importance, the beauty of nature, and that will grow into respect for it.
And Katya.
Well, I was just talking about writing. I love to write. I'm a good writer, and I write a ton of letters for editors. But what I really want to do, if I had the guts and if I was ready to commit, would be to talk to the editors about becoming a columnist to talk about climate change issues.
Great, take it to the next level. Perfect. Okay, wonderful things, wonderful things. Yeah. Okay, so this first part we were looking at ourselves. Excellent. The next little piece I want to look at what do we do with the other people around us? Because this is about unleashing initiative, our own and other people's. So my first question is, who do you know in your life that's been good at that? And what do they do? And let's just get a few thoughts out there about maybe it's a coach, a teacher, a group leader. Who have you known and what have they done? Yeah, Katya.
Well, actually, I just want to, this is my one comment I just want to make sometime during this day, because this is what I'm learning is, Like, I don't find the grocery store conversation to be that valuable because I feel like I'm proselytizing, and I feel like people feel like I'm proselytizing. Like, suddenly I'm actually have an agenda when they thought we were just chatting. And so what I feel is working better is when I like take some deep thoughts and really think about a friend and what they really do offer, and then actually just call them specifically to talk about something. So I feel like, I don't know, maybe I just wanted to see if that's
I think you're saying something key.
Or like, how do we really and truly engage? Like, I just have so many friends who are absolutely on board, and their only thing is they're already doing a million things and they have kids. And like, how do we rise above the chaos in that context and really help people to join this particular?
I think you said something really key, all of that, but the very first thing that caught me was you have to think about them, very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, which means you also have to know them. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. What else have you noticed and seen about unleashing initiative that works? Paul, go ahead.
One of the things that I have resolved to do is to do what Katya's talking about a bit, which is, for me, it would be listening. But listening to identify the other person's power and to encourage that and nourish that. That's a little bit of what Brian was talking about too. But it's like finding their magic and then encouraging them to go there. And maybe even into sheer terror or whatever. But we're there actually just some kind of quantum leap beyond where they had ever been. And some of that is actually happening in our suburban Minneapolis group and in South in Dakota County, but it's also in other people who are around that group. And it's kind of, well, it's just awesome to watch. But also to be able to call in reinforcements if I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So knowing that there's help when you need it is key.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. There were some other people, yeah.
I think being part of a community that is like-minded is so helpful. I'm in the same region as Paul, and sometimes we feel like everybody around us is a climate denier or doesn't care. You know what I mean? And so to know that there are other people that think like I do really empowers me to be a little bit bolder, to speak out and not let things go. And there's letters to the editor saying it's all a hoax, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's very helpful.
Yeah. Excellent.
I think groups also help to put stories together. You know, individual experiences come together in a group, and you can put a better story together as a result of the individual experiences.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I want to tell you, like, one of my best role models actually is Mark Reynolds. Probably not unique in that. So I'll tell you one little story from Mark about ways he supported me, and actually it's nice, Tim, because it involved my decision to go get arrested in the first Keystone Pipeline protests. Yeah. And actually the first thing I did when I was thinking about it was I called Mark up and asked him, did he think that would be valuable? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. Okay, let's just go off onto the magic sheer terror land. So, but then of course, so I get to DC the day before he calls me, right, to actually make me laugh about it. So that was one way he supported me. The day after, or the day, or right after I call him, he calls me, whatever, to hear all about it, and I'm like really in the glow, because it had been very terrifying, but then like when I was right there, it was all magic. It was like just the best thing I ever did in my life. So there, that's what I have to say about that. Okay. Yeah, it was like, okay, finally something that actually comes closest to representing the depth of what I feel about this. Okay, but then we're talking, and Mark finds out, and I've been in CCL like 6 months, and I've been to a national conference and done that first scary lobby thing. But he finds out that I have another day in DC. So Mark being Mark, he says to me, well, why don't you go drop in on your congressional aides that you met a couple months ago and just talk to them? And I'm like, no, Mark, no, I'm not doing that. I just did this other thing. I have a few other things to do, and no, I couldn't do that. And he dropped it. He didn't challenge me, push me, or anything. He just let that sit. But it sat in my head for like another 6 hours, and I was like, darn it, are you gonna be a coward? Mark thinks I could do this. How often do you come to DC? Are you gonna waste this time and this trip? You know, and it just like ate at me. And so finally, like the next morning, I was like, okay, Mark, I have 3 hours. I'll do it. But you have to tell me where I go, because I don't know where these people are anymore, and what do I say? So of course, Mark goes and looks up where they are and tells me what he thinks I should say, and I go and I do this. And it was great. It was like, well, I never thought I'd drop in on him, but it was great to drop in on him. So you can see like a whole host of things he did. Both like the presence, the concrete help, and the communication of belief in me, you know, and the, here, try the next thing, and offering it. So like when I don't know what to do, I think about Mark.
Cool.
Yeah, isn't that a cool story?
Awesome.
Yeah.
There are bumper stickers all over Minnesota. What would Wellstone do?
That's
Uh-huh.
right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
what would
I have to do this part when Mark's not around. It's like, what would Mark do? Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so this also really goes to. I often talk about. I didn't tell you. You probably heard. I used to be a teacher before I came on staff for CCL. I think I did tell you that. And I taught 4-year-olds actually, 4-year-old kindergarten they called it, and first grade. And you cannot make 4-year-olds really do anything. You have to get them to want to. You can think you can, but you really can't. Especially when there's way more of them than there are of you.
Something about herding cats.
So yeah. So there's this thing though that we're changing in the elementary world, which is really to think about people individually, like Katya was saying, about your students individually, to know them, know what they can do already, what's their comfort zone, or what's their area of accomplishment. You know, what can they do independently, and then to know like what's the next thing in the progression of what would be useful to them to learn, even if it's like zipping your coat. You know, they can't put the thing in it first, but they can pull the zipper up, right? Okay, so you figure out like what's the next piece of challenge for them, and then you provide some structure that helps them do it. Just enough structure so that they're doing part of it independently and having enough help to do part of it. And then as they do that, then you gradually remove the structure so they're more and more independent. And you really do that kid by kid by kid when you're teaching well. Well, it's the same thing with the people in your chapter, right? You got to know them, and then figure out, well, what's the next thing? And then how much support do they need to succeed? And so this is really crucial because, you know, like as group leaders, like we need people to help with the work for group leaders. But everybody in our chapter can serve this kind of role for each other and be that kind of support person. So a few things I've tried in my chapter, just thinking about people, just examples of things that I've come up with. Like Sarah, who I talked about, who saw herself as the representative at the church. Well, when CCL came out with the action that we were going to start reaching out to faith communities, I was like, Sarah, I think we need a committee for this. Would you chair it? That was perfect. She didn't even need anything other than me just giving her permission to go and fly with that. That committee's off and running. So she really didn't even need any support. Another guy came in new on the other end, and he had a ton of skills. He did media for the Nelson Institute in Madison, which is like the big environmental arm of the UW. A ton, like hundreds of scientists there. And he's retired. I was all excited. He's there. I was trying really hard not to just leap on him, you know. Yes, could you do this and this and this? But he like had all that, but he didn't know anything about CCL yet. So I was so pleased with myself because what I figured out was we were having a new committee, because we're gotten big enough to do that, where we're looking at how can we start chapters outside of Madison, and where are the key places in the Republican districts that we want to beef up, because that's what we can do as a large chapter. And I said to Tom, well, just come and sit in on this thing. You know, you'll find out some more, and you'll get a feel for CCL, and you don't have to do anything, just come and sit. Well, he liked that. He came and sat in on the end of the meeting. He's sitting there writing while we're talking away. And at the end of it, I looked and I said, well, what are you thinking, Tom? And he's like, well, I thought I could reach out to these alumni, because I have the alumni list. And I thought I would just start subscribing to the Oshkosh Daily Northwestern, like you guys were talking about the Janesville paper. I'm like, okay. So, yeah, it was just like finding the right thing in. So that's what we can do for each other, is what I would say. You know. So.
Without an agenda, huh?
Yeah, you know, like I know when I ask the right thing of somebody because they're excited about it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And what I had to learn to get over was they're gonna say no.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just view that as I didn't quite figure them out right, then I don't have to feel bad about the no. And they've given me information, because when they say no, they tell you, like, you know, why they can't do it or don't want to or what was wrong about it. And then it's like, okay, so let's figure out what is the right thing. Yeah.
I love
Yeah. And I hope you're thinking, I can do this too, whether I'm a group leader or not. Because there's people coming into the chapter that you know better than the group leader. You know.
Hmm.
So, and the more of us do that for each other, the more of us will fly and soar and do great things we never dreamed we could do. And so, any thoughts or comments on that? Or things you've seen that really worked?
Having just done a group start down at Northfield, and not having one person stand up as group leader and 6 people interested in it,
Mm-hmm.
it was an interesting dynamic of each one of them had something to offer the group. And yet I know how important it is to have a person that you can support, and I don't know if it could be 1 or 2. So out of that, I come home, and Al Anderson, who's not here today, but he was responsible for the big Northfield event, he said he couldn't find a description of a group leader, so he wrote one. And he sent it to me, and he sent it to you, and I was kind of looking at that, and I said, wow, that's really good. Well, maybe not quite there, but it's like, we all have to write our own job description here. You know, as a group leader, I know in results in the old days, it was very clear what a partner was. You had a group leader and you had a partner, and a partner agreed to boom, 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 come to the meetings, do that. And so I think it would be an interesting thing for all of us to kind of write our description of who we are.
Yeah, well, the other thing is Alan was such obviously made to be a CCLer because he saw a need and he filled it instead of going, why isn't that here and where is it? You know, and he actually filled a need. I had somebody ask me the day after he sent that to me, could you give me a group leader description? I was like, hey, I just got one. Those people trying to start new chapters.
And I was sure there would be one in the troves of information, and I went to Amy and it was like, whoa, here we go.
Yeah, there's always more to work on.
I just had hoped to say sometime during this weekend that, to remember that we're not alone, and we are doing a mini conference and we have co-sponsorship with the League of Women Voters. That's one group that it really is with us. That the climate isn't their only topic. They're probably more passionate about voting rights or other things and candidates forums, but they do have a position on renewable energy.
Yeah.
And when we made a motion, or I remember both groups, of course, and to ask for their co-sponsorship for an event, the vote was unanimous. So
That's great. That's great. And those relationships are something that you bring to CCL, and other people do too.
Right.
More of them. Yeah.
So the relationship with churches, I mean, personally, I can hardly stand to go to church sometimes, but I go anyway. I do have an agenda I can take there. Anyway, but to think more partners out.
Yeah. You're all over the place. Okay.
I
Yeah, go
gotta
ahead,
say,
Jean.
Judy, the person that just spoke is a good example of leadership arising from within the group and just moving ahead with something that they feel passionate about. And she's the reason why we're gonna be having this big energy conference in Alexandria, of all places. And it's the kind of thing we do, and our members just do things, you know, they just,
Yeah.
they run with it.
Yeah. Great.
There's a guy who is the, I think the lead sponsor on a bill to develop solar policy for the state of Minnesota. And I called him up yesterday because he's right nearby in Burnsville, Minnesota. And he said, oh, geez, I'd love to go to this thing, but I got, my wife and I are going on vacation tomorrow, so he's flown out somewhere today. But he said, one of the things I'm really interested in having partners in is a visit to our local energy utility in March. There's a date in the 25th of March, and we're going to be able to talk about solar policy, or what we'll be able to articulate some of the goals that we have as members of CCL. And so I think what that means is that there are people who may be able to contribute even if they're not present, even if they can't accept our invitation to do something. They're probably going to be able to contribute in some way. And our listening for what that could look like is just, that's the whole ballgame right there.
Yeah.
It's actually a solar forum we're going to be doing with Dakota Electric. Yeah.
Cool.
That's exciting.
There is so much good stuff happening. I could keep going listening to you guys all day, but I looked at the clock, so I'm not gonna right at the moment.
Very
But
good.
yeah, this is so great. Okay, so let's bring it back to our chapters a little bit more. And so I've got here a list that I originally called CCL Volunteer Tasks and Actions, but I renamed it, but I have a bunch of copies with the old name on it. I now call it CCL Volunteer Opportunities. You can see why. And here's what I don't want anybody to do with it. Right? I don't want you to look at this and go, oh my God, we're not doing enough. Forget that NDE, not doing enough.
Okay.
All right, I'm not doing enough, my chapter's not doing enough, it's not enough unless it's every single thing on here. No, what this is opportunities and possibilities to help you think about things that could be happening in your chapter. Because I try to have in my mind as I meet people, like in the back of my mind, what are the kinds of things that could be useful? So when somebody new comes in, I have, would you help me move the table as one option for involving them, to would you, man the table or and just try to get a feel for them. So because when you ask people to do things, that says they matter, basically. Okay, so this will give you a lot of possibilities. And what I'd like you to do, I just want to pass it out and have you take a look at it and just think for a minute before we pair off just a little more again. But have you just read it over for a minute or two and think about yourself and your chapter in the context of what you see here. Now that's pretty open-ended, but I trust that your mind is going to go where it's most fruitful. Did you have a question?
Yes. The time at meetings ends up being really tight for us, and we've discussed the possibility of having committees that work on different issues, and then that the meeting time becomes more of a reporting back. Is that a model that you have used? Do you recommend it, or is it better just to try to keep it all together?
I think there's a million ways that things are being tried out there, and we want people to experiment and see what works for your group. That said, as I've gotten larger in Madison, we've had more committees, and that's been really useful. Prior to that, those meetings, it's like run through everything in an hour, have the national call. We do our business before the national call in Madison because we don't like sitting there quiet for an hour first. Doesn't come easy to us. And then I would conduct a lot of business by email and phone call in between the month. But that got unwieldy and too me-focused, and so we're doing more committees. Try things. Yeah, Jean?
Do you task your committees, like they have a goal, or do they talk among themselves and decide here's what we want to actually accomplish, or how's that?
Well, most of my committees have come off of action. So like the first time I did it was when we had the TV meteorologist action, and I was like, okay, that's not something you do 1 month and you're done with it. That's a bunch of people who are supposed to keep an ongoing relationship going, and that's not going to be easy. So let's have a committee, and I asked somebody to keep track of those people. But that was as much task as they got, you know, and then I kind of check back in with them and praise them whenever anything happens, because it's not easy. It's pretty much the same way with all of them. They come out of thing, but it's usually, I'm usually pretty open-ended just to see what evolves.
Always a core that is established, and there's 3 or 4, maybe it's 5, like Phil, I don't know how many core people you have, but maybe 6, and that's a lot. And that if each core person really adopted a person who comes occasionally, they came once, and you know, in between, like 2 weeks after the meeting, how are you doing? You know, here's what we're doing. We're getting together to do this. Did you know about this event? Wow, could I edit a letter that you wrote? Or, you know, just having more of a outreach connection with one person. I think that would make a big difference, because there'll be a lot of people at this conference that might not come to February 1st. We'll see. But then to get back in touch, and you know, nobody can do that all, but everybody can do one. So it's like each one reach one.
Yeah, that's a great idea. You know, my first 2 years of building Madison, I think almost everybody who came in knew I invited to coffee, went out and got to know them, and I needed to delegate more of that. But the piece that was right about that was they had a relationship to somebody in the chapter, and somebody who had some idea of what they wanted to do and brought to it. And so you've got a lot of new people who have come in, and yeah, if you can each call one, and that'll make a huge difference in retaining them.
And just like adding on to that, I think that having those sorts of relationships and connecting to people not only helps or get members and retain them, but also have those people be active within the group and feel comfortable talking and engaging and sharing their ideas. Because I think a lot of times, if you just come into a group and try being there, it's not a natural setting to be in if you don't actually know the people.
Yeah.
And kind of because of that too, or usually we start the meeting with introductions and kind of going over a little bit of the missions of CCL, because we always have people that are new, and then we have like this core group, and it just feels like it just keeps growing. You know what I mean? And there's people that kind of float in and out, but they're coming back, and you know, sometimes we don't see them for 2-3 months, but then they come back and check in. And it also really helps to have somebody who is really personable. Like Debbie, that's you. I mean, she emails and Twitters and Facebooks, and everybody follows it. You know what I mean? If you have that really bubbly person, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. And again, it's good if you have more than one person doing that role, so that when new people walk in the room, really lots of people turn and talk to them, and don't just talk to the people they already know already. Yes. Yeah. Right.
This is a question for you, especially, I know a little bit about the Madison area because my son went to school there. So in the Madison kind of metro area, how many groups do you have?
Just one.
Just one. So all the outlying suburbs and those would come to your,
I have yet to persuade any of them that they want to start their own.
You're such a dynamic person that they want to stay with.
Yeah. Possibly.
So we struggle a little bit sometimes. You know, we have quite a few in the metro area here, and we struggle with my group out in the western suburbs, you know, and I often wondered, well, would we be better having them go into a city group or something like that, but we've kind of adopted this model of breaking it out, and, you know, I've got 34 people on my list, but most of those come and go, like you say, so it's a very small core group, but do you have any thoughts about that and size and synergy?
I don't have any hard and fast rules. You're probably getting that feeling. I do think my chapter is getting about as big as is going to work, and that I'm going to need to get some people to peel off a little bit. And my mind went blank on the rest of it right there. What else did you ask me?
Well, just with that scale, is there, you know, I can see some advantage. We talked about here of having our groups come together 2 or 3 times a year, and it's really, I think, powerful to see larger groups of people sometimes,
Yeah, so sometimes having a larger gathering will be good.
Yeah, but then other times, people, they don't wanna travel, burning a lot of carbon to get there.
That's
So
why
there's
local
kind
is
of-
nice.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
I don't know if I have an answer, but it's just kind of something that we struggle with a little bit. But, how many congressional districts do you have with yours?
Madison just is one congressional
Yeah,
district,
see,
so,
that's
yeah.
part of what we're.
Yeah, I mean, our
we have a
congressional
lot of
districts
groups,
cover a lot
but-
of territory.
Yeah, we cover a lot of different.
The other thing I was gonna say though is that I also don't always worry about whether people come to meetings or not, so much as if I know they're connected. I like it when they can come to meetings, but I have people, like Joel Rogers, medical student, he doesn't make it to meetings, but he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And we have a way to stay in contact. So again, flexible. Okay, it's just about time to end. There's one more thing I'm gonna do in 60 seconds. So who's a group leader here? Just like raise your hand. Wow. Yeah, 13 groups, a lot of group leaders. Okay, so a lot I've been pitching that all of us can do these things that we're doing, and those of you who aren't group leaders are needed to help with that. But I also just want to say that there is something really special about group leaders. That you/they are really the people who go all out, who, because you've taken that role on, you feel like your neck's on the line a little bit more, you put more, they just are people who have put more time, probably more money, and maybe been out in sheer terror, like a little more than you probably realize. So I partly just want to acknowledge that and thank you, because it's like half the room in here is group leaders. But what I also say at all the conferences now to the other folks is cherish your group leader. Back them up when they feel like their neck is stuck out. Help them out. Volunteer to help with the work, and be that constructive person that helps things move forward, like you guys know how to do, because they are just really special people. So can we just thank you.